What is up to the fantasy junkies out there? What is up to my fellow fantasy sweaters? Are you ready to sweat on Sunday? I hope so, because it's tomorrow. It's coming up. Welcome, everybody, to the Daily Fantasy Sweat Podcast presented by What the Lou Media. I am your host, Kris King. Thanks for being here on a Saturday night. Satudday. If only I could spell or speak properly. Night. All right, here we are. I tweeted out this morning that the show would not be out Saturday morning. I had some personal stuff come up, nothing crazy, nothing bad or anything, but just was not able to get to the show early this morning. And so here we are. It's a Saturday evening. This will double as the Saturday show and Sunday morning show, which I actually kind of like because we're going to dive in and go over everything. We're going to go team by team, position by position. We're going to talk about ownership. We're going to talk about stacking. We're going to talk about it all. The injuries, cash games, GPP plays, all that stuff. And so it will double as both of those. So we're going to get through all that. And no show tomorrow, but by the time we're done with this, you won't need to hear my voice or anything else. We'll try to keep this as tightly packed as possible. And we may do this more in the future. So, but no time to waste talking about that. Let's just get into it. We have so little to do and so much time. Oh wait, strike that. Reverse it. A little Willy Wonka there for you. Okay, we are going to start. There are a lot of injuries on today's slate, so let's bounce over and take a look at those. We are using a couple tools on Roto Grinders today. If you don't subscribe to Roto Grinders, you absolutely should. I think anybody who plays DFS should really be a part of this this group over here, and these tools. I think you should probably pay for at least a couple sites for really good DFS information. I have mine. I won't share them all with you, but here we are on their what they call the situation room. It lists all the injuries and kind of what to expect. So we're going to run these down really quick so you know where a guy stands at this point on Saturday. Take a big breath and run these down. I'll probably only hit the ones that truly matter. So here we go. Julio Jones. Oh, wait, I forgot to do the deep breath. Okay. Julio Jones, currently probable with the hamstring. Devontae Adams, also probable with the same hamstring. Throw Chris Godwin in the mix. Same status, same body part. Drew Lock, no one cares about. Cam Newton is currently questionable with the COVID whole situation. Kyle Allen, probable. Sam Darnold is doubtful. Nick Chubb out. Prescott, Murray, Dalvin Cook, all out. Melvin Gordon out. This is newer information. So we'll be looking at Phillip Lindsay a little bit later. Odell, probable. Julian Edelman, questionable. Deontay Johnson is out. Corey Davis, doubtful. DJ Chark, questionable. Dallas Goedert, Sonny Michel, Lev Bell, Sammy Watkins, all out. Sammy Watkins, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about him all week. Jarvis Landry is questionable. Noah Fant is out. Zach Moss, probable. Sterling Shepard, doubtful. Lenny Fournette, questionable. John Brown and A.J. Green, both questionable. Phillip Lindsay, probable. Rieger, Paris, Campbell, both out. Darius Slayton, questionable. That's probably all we really need to list off. Everyone else you should probably know about. And, we'll kind of skim over them all anyway. We're bouncing over here to Lineup HQ. You're not seeing the whole screen there. I'll pull this down for you. We've got, if you use this, or if you don't use this tool, you got player pool, build rules, groups, stacks, all this up here. We're going to move this up here for now because really all we're focusing on are the players and the games. And here we go. We're going to go game by game, really team by team. So let's start with Baltimore. And what I do here on Lineup HQ is, and I've already done this, but here with the in the player pool, you can go to options and you can exclude all, which I have done. You can include all, and it'll move all your guys over from excluded players to included players. Basically what we're doing is I'm taking everyone out of the player pool, and then I'm going and putting them back in one by one based on who I want to play. So I'll do that again. Go down to here, exclude all. Yes, bounces them over here. And then I'm going to hit the plus sign, which you can't see. It's kind of out of the screen. But I'm going to add them back in. So here we go. Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he's been a fantasy darling for the last 2 years. Been a little underwhelming so far this year. This could be a spot where he gets back right. Philadelphia, probably not a good enough team to really hold him back, but probably, a decent enough team to maybe keep it competitive. and keep him going hard. Lamar's going to pop off one of these weeks, and I definitely want to have at least some of him, so he's definitely in the player pool. When it comes to running backs, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and if you want to know how these guys are listed, actually I didn't have them sorted that way, but I'm listing them points per dollar right here. So Mark Ingram up top, J.K. Dobbins, not guys I want to get to a lot. They're splitting so much work, but, they could. I don't love them, but they're going in the player pool nonetheless. Just, we might kick them out later, but, we'll see. Really, honestly, I don't see myself playing them, so why am I doing this? Let's go back over. I want to take them out. I don't really, they're just not on my radar. So, and no build that I've done in my head has included them. So we're going to leave them out at this point. We're going to put in the most pivotal people based on opportunity and value. And some guys are going to get left out. Might surprise you a little bit. Okay, wide receiver, Marquise Brown up top. He's, of course, going in. The rest of these guys, I don't have a lot of interest in, but one guy I do is Devin Duvernay. Willie Snead, Miles Boykin, actually looked at as the number 2 and number 3 receiver. Boykin being the number 2, Snead the number 3. Or really, it doesn't matter. Last week, neither of them got a single reception. Neither of them touched the ball one time. Which this is why, obviously, Lamar Jackson skinny stacks are a thing. But I am going to put Devin Duvernay in there because even though he's not technically the second or third guy, he touched the ball 3 times last week. They try to get the ball in this guy's hands, whether it's, rushing attempts, end rounds, things like that, passing. And he also returns kicks, and so you can double dip with the Ravens defense, special team, and Devin Duvernay if he runs one back. That is a good play. So I'm putting him in the player pool. Tight end, we get our highest price, most confident tight end on the slate in Mark Andrews, so definitely going to have some of him. When it comes to defense, I absolutely want to play the Ravens defense. Let's move over to the Philadelphia side, and we'll click it back to quarterback here. I do not want to play Carson Wentz this week. He's not on my radar at all. Running back, Miles Sanders, love him for tournaments. Don't want to play him in cash games, but if I'm going to play some Lamar Jackson stacks, I got to run it back with somebody, and there's not a lot that you feel totally confident with on Philly. And you'll notice that as we go through, some of the player possibilities. And I think, that might keep Lamar's ownership down too. We'll look at ownership in a minute. Let's just keep going and putting guys in the player pool. At wide receiver, Travis Fulgham. I've heard him referred to as a tight end. I haven't really watched either of the games that he played very close, but he's had 2 pretty good games from what we've seen so far. So dropping him in at a 4.4 price tag. John Hightower listed as a good value, but just not the kind of 3K play I want to play, 3K guy I want to play. I'm not against the Ravens. He likes Greg Ward a little bit better. I'll drop him in there maybe. Maybe I get Greg Ward in like one lineup. We're not moving off the team. We're just going to tight end where we have Zach Ertz. He's not had, a great couple weeks. He's a member of this club of guys that we're trying to figure out if they are toast or not. It's, Zach Ertz, Phillip Rivers, which we're pretty sure he's toast. He's been toast for a while. Matt Ryan, AJ Green, guys on the cusp. Phillip Rivers, I think, is off the cusp. I don't know why the Colts paid him so much, especially with Cam Newton out there. But we'll put him in the player pool. We'll see if we get a little bit. There's a chance that, he potentially comes back. I don't want any Eagles defense this week. So that does it for that game. So before we move on to the next game, we are going to go back over here, look at our players, look at the offense. What is going on? Oh, yeah, I don't have them highlighted here. Okay, sorry, podcast people, you don't really see what's going on. So we're looking at everyone who are playing. We've got everyone listed here except the quarterbacks. For some reason, and here's a little beef I have. Here's a little helpful feedback information for Roto-Grinders and Lineup HQ. Why don't you include the quarterbacks on the offense tab? And nowhere in here at all can I see all players I have listed from this game, unless I'm doing something wrong, but I don't think so. All right, here's what we're looking at. I'm looking at skinny Lamar stacks. Lamar just doesn't. He's not the kind of guy who's going to light up 2 pass catchers more than likely on one occasion. I wouldn't mind having maybe Duvernay in here in the mix because I don't know if he correlates or not, but I don't think he hurts for a correlation. So I could see myself playing, Andrews and Duvernay, something like that. Maybe, I don't know if I'd play Brown and Duvernay. It's not like they can't go off in the same game. And let's keep in mind what going off for Duvernay is. I mean, he just needs, the 4 for 40 floor, and he'll be just fine. He'll pay off that 3K price tag no problem with those 4 receptions and some yards. So, yeah, I'm going to Lamar stacks, Mark Andrews. I'm going to want some of that just because tight end is so bad. I think he's got a decent opportunity here against Philadelphia, who's really not played well against the tight end all year. So I like Mark Andrews over Marquise Brown, I think, but I think they both have options for like a killer week. And thinking that, you would think I would double stack them, but I just don't know how often I'll wind up doing that. If I'm going to do a run back, like I said, Miles Sanders is a great option. A lot of people won't stack this game because of the lack of they look at Lamar and they say, so you got, okay, Lamar hasn't played great all year. You've got, you have, what else am I? Oh, yeah, there's not like a great, he's expensive. And if I stack him, I have to stack him with someone expensive like Marquise Brown or Mark Andrews. And so it's an expensive stack, and there's no great run back opportunity. So that's why you see when you look at Lamar over here at quarterback, looking about 6.5% owned. That is so low. And to be high on Lamar this week, it's definitely a risk. If he doesn't take off running, doesn't get a rushing TD, and that's just not a part of his game, then he's not going to deliver on this 7.7 price tag. But he is low owned, which I like. So, yeah, we talk stacks, we talk ownership. Let's move on. Next game, Cincinnati at Indianapolis. Cincinnati at Indianapolis. Start on the Cincinnati side, and here's Joe Burrow, start at quarterback. I don't really love this play, but also I think there's a chance that Cincinnati can keep this close and or actually even win this game, which means I should want to have some Joe Burrow, but I have so many quarterbacks, I just don't think I'm going to get there. Not a great total game. Oh, speaking of which, I did not rattle off these totals. Let's back up. Baltimore, 28 implied team total. Philadelphia, 18.5. In the next game, Cincinnati, 19.25. Indianapolis, 27.25. So since he's favored by a good bit, the team total throughout overall is not great, and I just don't think I'm going to get to Burrow in my player pool this week. Joe Mixon, I will want some of. He's a talent. He's going to get the opportunity. I would like to see him in on more passing downs, and it is a tough defensive line. So there's that. But Indy's missing some linebackers, and this helps when it comes to, those next level, if he breaks through, if he breaks through the defensive line, he's got weaker linebackers there on second hits, so, he could slip one for a big one in here. And also, if he's involved in the passing game, again, linebackers trying to cover him, it's not going to be pretty. So I do like Mixon there. Let's look at the receivers. Tyler Boyd, Burrow's favorite target. I don't need him, really, and I don't think I'm going to get too much because he's 5'8", and that's pretty pricey. I would only really roster him, I think, if I had Burrow, which I don't right now. So I don't see myself playing a lot of Tyler Boyd. What I do like is at 4.7, T. Higgins is kind of coming up through the mix, and I don't mind playing Higgins opposite, maybe something that I do on Indy, whether I play Jonathan Taylor, which I like. That's one thing that, I am going to put Boyd in there because I think he could be a good play. He is a little too expensive, but I want more Higgins, less Boyd for situations where I want to correlate, because I will play some Indianapolis pieces in tournaments. I will play some Jonathan Taylor. I will be playing that tight end that used to play for the Bears that all of a sudden I can't remember his name because I'm talking about other guys right now. But back to the receivers, I don't want A.J. Green or Mike Thomas or anything. So moving on from receiver to tight end, let's just take a peek. What's his name? Trey Burton. That's right. I needed to see his name because I felt dumb. So yeah, I'll use Boyd and or Higgins, but I love Higgins this week for correlation when you play Taylor or that guy's name who I forgot again. I'm just kidding. Trey Burton. Tight end Drew Sample, a guy that I've been wanting to trust ever since I saw him when we saw TJ Uzoma go down, and Sample's, his opportunity has been there, but I just don't think I'm going to get there this week. I don't know. Tight end is kind of ugly. What has his true opportunity been? His targets haven't been great. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here, that Cleveland game. He got 9 targets. This is the game CJ Uzoma went down. Put a lot of trust and faith in him, and yeah, he's put up 15 and 11. I thought those were fantasy points. Never mind. See, his fantasy points haven't been great, so not really going to include him here. I just did like a whole 360 there on Drew Sample. Defense, Bengals is a nice, cheap defense, a nice pivot. I think they have opportunity against, Dusty Phillip Rivers, who, is one of those guys who I talked about, and he's actually the guy we know is done. So I like their defense. Let's move it over to Cincinnati. Clearly don't want any Phillip Rivers, so we're not going there. Running back, I do want some Jonathan Taylor. Jordan Wilkins was on the injury report. I didn't read everything from a situation room over here, but that could be very interesting for both Hines and Taylor if Jordan Wilkins happens to miss. I don't know if that's been updated or not. Right now, we're leaving him out of the player pool. But I do like Jonathan Taylor today in tournaments because there's going to be no one who plays him. The defensive line, offensive line matchup there is just great for Indianapolis and Jonathan Taylor. So this is a week where we might really see what he's made of. And if he's somebody we want to sell on and season long, buy low on, start rostering in DFS, we'll have to see. Receivers, man, T.Y. Hilton, another dusty candidate, all dust team. Zach Pascal I actually like. So I might drop a Zach Pascal in here. Actually, I'm going to leave him out right now. I just don't want much from this game, and the plays that I do know that I like are Taylor and the next guy we're about to put in over here at tight end, Trey Burton. Here's why. He's 3.1K. He's not quite the minimum, but he's very inexpensive. They've been talking this guy up. The last 2 weeks, they have fed him 5 and 6 targets. He's got 5 and 2 receptions. And in last week against Cleveland, he got 8.3 fantasy points, which that doesn't matter. It's this opportunity right here. 5 and 6 targets is pretty nice for this 3.1. We know Phillip Rivers likes to throw to the tight end. It just kind of all seems to be there for this cheap price tag. He's got, a decent floor and decent ceiling compared to other guys in that low in there that we'll talk about later. Colts defense, I definitely want to get a little bit of that. I like their opportunity there. All right, so that's everyone from that game. Let's look at the offense in total from this game. We have got over here. Yeah, really, we're just looking at Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. Wait, where's Burton? Why is he not in this mix? Did I not put him in? I didn't click him in. Okay. Let's go back to offense here. Why? Okay, sorry. Having a little bit of issues. I'm on the excluded players. Yeah, Trey Burton, Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. These are just guys that I want correlation pieces of. If I have Trey Burton or Taylor, I want some from the other side. Same goes for, it's really my base plays here are going to be, the only reason I'm going to get Boyd and Higgins is because I have Burton or Taylor. The only reason I'll get Mixon probably is because I'll have one of the others. So there you go. Just a little correlative pieces there. I don't want to build around this game very much. There's nothing that really stands. 17% ownership percentage on Jonathan Taylor. That seems a little high to me. That's a little nutty. I thought he was going to be more low owned. We'll have to see. Sorry, we're popping a little bit in the audio. All right, let's move it on to the next game. Detroit at Jacksonville. Detroit with a 28.75 implied team total, and we will start over there. We'll start at quarterback, and Matthew Stafford is definitely a play this week. He's big-time consideration for cash, and not much to say, about that. Coming off a bye week in a great spot. Let's look at running back here. Should we just click to the offensive tab? We'll still go position by position. Adrian Peterson, not someone I'm really getting excited about, but DeAndre Swift is. Kerryon Johnson is getting less and less work. I know it looks like a three-man backfield, but that's perfect because if people still think that, and in a sense, it is, Carry-on got 3 attempts the last 2 weeks, and that's down from 7 and 8 the first 2 weeks. So I really like that for Swift. Carry-on Johnson getting phased out a little bit more, and I think Swift may see a few more carries, going to handle, the receiving here. And in this game, that's going to potentially be back and forth. It's just 2 bad defenses, and especially a bad defense for the Jacksonville side. I think Swift can get somewhere this week, so I'm putting him in. At wide receiver, Kenny Golladay, one of the best plays on the week. Another very good cash consideration. He's just too cheap. He's 6.2K. Is a good spot coming off the injury, coming off the bye week. It's a smash spot for him. He's going to be very highly owned. We'll talk about that in a minute. Marvin Jones, also a really good contrarian play for stacks. Not interested in any of these other guys. At wide receiver, moving over to tight end, I definitely want Hawkinson in the mix. Lions defense, they're 3K. Minshew gets a little wild. I'll throw him in there. Why not? All right, let's move over to the Jacksonville side. Minshew, I don't know if I'll get a lot of, but we'll start there. I mean, I just like this game environment. I see a lot of offense coming into play. At wide receiver, I want some James Robinson, nothing else. Sorry, that's running back. At receiver, Chark, he's still questionable, but if he plays, I want some. And if he doesn't, I really like, Laviska Shenault and Keelan Cole in here for some action. If Chark misses, if Chark is in, still like Laviska. I mean, I still like Cole too, man. He's been very involved in the offense. Tyler Eifert could get involved here. 3.4K. I'll put him in. He's projected. I mean, if he gets 7 fantasy points, that's fine. That's his projection. It's an okay floor. Not sure he's gonna hit that, but let's move on to defense. Jags defense, I don't want because I think Detroit's gonna put up points here regardless. If any team struggles, I think it'll be Jacksonville. But I don't see either team struggling actually. So that's why I like both of them. All right, let's look at the offense overall. Let's add Detroit back in here and just look at everyone we have. Golladay, James Robinson, Marvin Jones, Chark, Laviska, Eifert, Hawkinson, Keelan Cole, DeAndre Swift. Obviously, both quarterbacks in the mix. Ownership-wise, yeah, you see Kenny Golladay is going to be very highly owned. You see Matthew Stafford. 5.9, that's not as high as I thought it would be, actually. But Kenny Golladay, people are going to be all over that. And it's good chalk, so, you can eat it, but you just be a little weary. I just wouldn't go, what am I trying to say? 4 to the floor, pedal to the floor? I don't know. What am I? All right, let's erase life and just pretend I never stuttered over my words there. Yeah, I wouldn't put the pedal to the floor on Kenny Golladay is what I'm saying. I think he is a really good play, though. I think he's better chalk than, the A.J. Brown chalk that we're going to be dealing with, but just tread lightly. Marvin Jones, I think, is a terrific pivot off Golladay or pair with Golladay. And obviously you're going to have, Hawkinson in the mix as well. Over here on the Lions side, you can put DeAndre Swift. There's so many combinations on the Lions side, so many combinations on the Jag side. I think as long as you're building stacks within all these guys here, you're fine. Just keep an eye on ownership. Golladay is really only getting super high ownership. James Robinson, who I really like, really like James Robinson. Project for 18 fantasy points. Love that as well. All right, let's move on to the next game. Atlanta at Minnesota, a game a lot of people are waiting for and targeting. On the Atlanta side, they have a 25-point implied team total. Minnesota with a 29 implied team total. On the Atlanta side for quarterback, I am going to play Matt Ryan. I'm going to have him in there. I think people could be off of him. He doesn't look great, but that's why I want him, because people could be off. Todd Gurley, he's going in. At wide receiver, I want Julio. I want Calvin Ridley. Julio's probably going to play, so no Zacchaeus. Oh, excuse me. And then Russell Gage, I want some as well. Going to have just a sprinkle, because We saw what he was able to do with Julio and Ridley getting all the attention when they're both on the field. I like what Russell Gage could potentially give us at tight end. Man, Hayden Hurst has really kind of let us down, but I am going to put him in the player pool. Falcons defense, I mean, their defense is terrible. This is why we want so many Minnesota plays. So I am not going to include them. Over on the Minnesota side, quarterback Kirk Cousins. It's not often we get excited about playing Kirk Cousins, but when it's against Atlanta, we do. So he's going in. Alexander Madison is one of the chalk of all chalks. Mike Boone, I'm putting in because I think he could get some secondary work there. He's very cheap. Kind of have a little bit of him. Adam Thielen, one of the best plays. I mean, he's 22% owned. I know that's chalk, but again, it's good chalk, and he's just one of the best plays on the slate. I really like Justin Jefferson for tournaments at this 11% ownership. Thielen's just got a better locked in, he's got the targets locked in. He's got the market cornered on targets and receptions. So, but Justin Jefferson, I think, could be really great. Okay, at tight end, Irv Smith is 2.5K. He is the minimum. This is where you potentially decide if you want to punt. It's a very good game situation, very good game script. But let's look at Irv Smith and what he has done this year. Over here, let's just look here. Targets 1-4, nothing across the board here. 1-5. So in this 4-target game, he only had 1 reception. So he's only had 1 good game, and a good game for him is 4 for 60 floor last week against the Seattle Seahawks. Got 10 points. If he's more involved in the offense, I mean, he's a tremendous play at 2.5K, but expect a flat 0 in fantasy points. It's happened twice this year, and then twice he's scored 1 and 2 points. So that is a possibility. He's still going in my player pool. I do want a little bit. Man, Kyle Rudolph could catch a touchdown. He's like the red zone guy there. I'm going to put him in. I don't know. Just maybe if I'm building 150, which I don't know if I'm doing that yet, but having 2 or 3 lineups with Kyle Rudolph in case he catches an end zone, it's worth it. All right, Vikings D, they are going in. One of the best priced Ds on the slate. And could force Matt Ryan, who I've heard some say has the yips and might just be on the downside of his career and fast. And if that's true, I'm not saying he's done, but if he's done, that Minnesota defense could get on him a little bit and allow him to turn the ball over. Okay, on the Minnesota side, we did quarterback. What are we doing? We've already put everyone in. What am I doing? Yeah. So when we put all the Atlanta guys, where have I been the last 4 minutes? I don't know. Let's look at these teams as a whole together. We got a lot of guys here, and we are so that definitely means we are going to want pieces of this. I want pieces of this game in almost every lineup I create, whether it's a stack, whether it's just a piece here and there to get different. I don't want to play like these tight ends without the game stack. Keep that in mind. For me, I think that's the way I want to go. It's not great to play chalk tight ends. Let's keep that in mind. They're so variant. They're just like defenses, really. I mean, it's really hard for a tight end to pay off sometimes, and it's really like a flip of a coin. Do they get, they're not going to get targeted in the offense enough to really make a difference on their own without catching a touchdown. So that touchdown is a straight coin flip. So just keep in mind, Irv Smith is projected at almost 9%. It's not super chalk, but it's not, there's definitely going to be people playing him. So just be leery. And back to the initial point is I'm going to want a lot of this. I'm going to want a lot of this game in just about everything I do, whether it's the cheaper pieces, whether it's the most expensive ones. I just want it. Alexander Madison, 36.3% owned at this point. He's chalk. Again, he's good chalk. Running backs against Atlanta, smash. Quarterbacks and receivers against Atlanta, smash. Receivers against Minnesota have smash. So that's pretty much where we're going. Let's just make sure as we're building through here, we're not building lineups that are all super chalky. Got to keep that in mind. Let's move on. Washington, New York Giants. This should be pretty quick as I don't want a lot from this game. Washington, a 20.25 team total implied. New York Giants 22.75 implied team total. Let's start with the QB on the Washington side. Kyle Allen 5,100. Can't really get there. I was interested last week. Played a little bit when he was 4.1K. Now he's 5.1. No thank you. Let's move on. Running back. We pretty much talked about this game earlier in the week, and I told you what I wanted here. And that was the running backs from both teams. So Antonio Gibson. Let's just flip over to New York Giants. Devontae Freeman. And then there's 2 receivers I'm interested in. This is just the way we can do this. We might as well do both at once. And it's McLaurin and it's Slayton. That's really all I want to get from here. Maybe, okay. Oh, God, something went wrong on on Lineup HQ. I lost internet or something. Let's hope my lineups aren't just completely destroyed. All right, let's take all the teams out of here. Let's get back to the game we're talking about. Washington, New York. We're looking at the excluded players. Yeah, so I don't mind both of these defenses here. Washington, a little expensive. No, the Giants are, a little expensive too. Neither of these are super cheap, but they're both playing mistake-prone quarterbacks. So I absolutely want both of these guys. And when we look at everybody who we have here, I mean, it's really simple how we do this. We've got 2 running backs from each team, 2 wide receivers from each team. So if I play Antonio Gibson, I want to play Darius Slayton on the other side for correlation. If I play Devontae Freeman on one side, I wouldn't mind playing Terry McLaurin on the other side for correlation. You can also play these defenses with the running backs. It's kind of the perfect correlation for this game. Not a lot going on here total-wise. So, I expect few guys to get off here. And these are the ones who I expect mostly to do it. When you look at ownership, you got Terry McLaurin looking at 16%. I don't know how if it'll really get that high. These other guys are at great ownership spots. Love Antonio Gibson for 5% ownership. Devontae Freeman, yeah, I like all these guys for this game. Yeah, and we spend too much time, like 50%, too much time talking about that game. It's just so simple. All right, Chicago and Carolina. This is a game that I personally think I'm going to be fading in tournaments pretty heavily. In cash, it's a different story. I do like Mike Davis. It's not a great matchup, but the guy doesn't win, due to matchup. So I really like him for cash games because a lot of other people are going to be playing him. So he's really just canceling. It's really playing defense in cash. I mean, and I don't mean the defense that you play. I mean playing defense because other guys will be playing him. And you can play him knowing that he should have a decent floor because of his opportunity. And you can play him because if he does strike out, a lot of people are going to be playing these head-to-heads. And, I might fade him in double-ups. Like if I usually run, I say I usually, it's like my second week of playing cash heavy in my entire career of playing DFS. But I would think like maybe if you want to create a second lineup for double-ups instead of your head-to-heads. Now I am, pretty much playing them the same lineup in all of them, but a fade in double ups I don't think is a bad idea because of the matchup. It's not a great one, and just the game script in itself, this game could be really slow. Hence why I don't really know that I want many of the receivers. They'll go in the player pool because I'm going to want a drop here or two, but I will definitely be underweight on the field in this game overall. But Mike Davis, I mean, he's got, a decent amount of rushing attempts, but right here, the targets, 8, 9, 6, 10. I mean, this is what is winning you these weeks with Mike Davis, his receiving touchdowns. He's got 2 over 1 rushing touchdowns. He's got more receiving yardage. I mean, he doesn't have more receiving yardage, but when you see 60 and 45 amongst, games that he put up 46, ground yards and 89 ground yards. It's just, he just gets the looks. So I do want, we're doing this position by position. We totally skipped. I just started talking about the game overall without going to each position. I'm going to put Teddy in there. I don't want any Foles. I'm not going to get to much Teddy, but I'm going to have a little bit of him. So we got him in there. Mike Davis, David Montgomery. It's a really great matchup against Carolina. They give up an average of 6 more fantasy points than any other defense. So, yeah, running backs against Carolina. It's a good thing. drop him in there. Don't play them against each other. I talked about potentially doing that earlier in the week, but I really changed my tune on that really fast. Really put the brakes on that. Wish I hadn't even said that out loud. Allen Robinson, he's a great receiver. I want some of him. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, they're going in the player pool. But again, keep in mind, I am fading this game in tournaments. I think people are going to be all over Robbie Anderson. Let's just look. Well, let's get everybody in there from this game. Jimmy Graham, maybe he's good contrarian play. Ian Thomas, I just don't trust. The Bears do give up a decent amount against tight ends, but they don't really Carolina doesn't target the tight end, so not real interested there. And I can maybe see playing either one of these defenses because it might turn into just a sloggy type game. So let's look at what we have from this game as a whole. Ownership is what I wanted to look at, and you look at Robbie Anderson, it's at 9.7%, so but I think it's going to be higher. I think casuals are just going to be like, hey, Robbie Anderson is playing really well. I want to play him. I think people are just on this, we got to play Carolina guys, but I don't think this is the game for it. I'm going to be very underweight, but again, I'll have some, and that's let's leave it there. Let's move on to the next game. Houston at Tennessee. Houston with a 24.75 implied team total. Tennessee 28.75 looks. I mean, they're thinking this is going to be a shootout, and Derrick Henry is getting a decent amount of ownership here. Let's go ahead and just look at. Well, we're not talking about Derrick Henry here. We'll come back to Derrick Henry. Talking about Houston, start quarterback. I absolutely want Deshaun Watson. Who doesn't? I mean, playing him in tournaments, no doubt. David Johnson I'll put in the player pool. Not sure how much I'll get. Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, you're both going in. I could get to some Randall Cobb. I really could. At 4.4K, it's not terrible. I wasn't going to put him in, but at a second glance, I think I'm going to. At tight end, is Aiken still out? If he is, I still like Darren Fells at 3.8. I don't see him in here, so it must mean he might. There's a good chance he's going to miss. Defense, Texans, probably not. I think I'm going to skip out on the Texans defense. Let's move over to Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill. Dude's been balling. I mean, you think of this guy as a guy who doesn't have very many attempts, and you look at his game logs, 37, 24, 43 attempps. 321 yards in one of those games, almost 250 in one, 239 in another. These touchdowns, where are the touchdowns? Passing touchdowns. They're around here somewhere. Oh, here they are. 4 and 2. And his fantasy points right here, 19, 26, 13. I mean, he's pretty decent. I spent way too much time talking about Ryan Tannehill. We're putting him in. Derrick Henry. We're looking at real high ownership. And if this is going to be a shootout, Derrick Henry could easily get lost here. But Houston, again, I mean, Tennessee's not going to abandon the run until they're down by 30 points probably. That might be a little excessive, but yeah, they're not going to abandon the run. They're going to stick to what they do really well. I wouldn't hate coming in on Derrick Henry underweight here. If you get him in at 10, 12, 15%, you have your bases covered in case you kind of hit the right combination, but coming in underweight on Derrick Henry for tournaments, I think, is a really good idea. I will definitely be doing that because of the fact that this game could stay up in pace, but he's clearly going in the player pool. At wide receiver, A.J. Brown, 28% ownership. Again, same for tournaments, even though the game script might fit this narrative. Just the high ownership. I mean, it's the same with Galladay. They're good plays, but people are going to be on them, and if they underperform, which A.J. Brown has a much lower floor, I think, than Kenny Galladay. We've seen what he's done. He's just disappeared in some games. These have been playoff games mostly. But, yeah, so you just have to be weary with these super high-owned guys is all I'm saying. But he's going in the player pool, and it looks like maybe Humphreys is going to play. He's in the mix here. I don't really know if I want him, but Khalif Raymond's a big he's a big target. He is not in stature. That would be this Westbrook dude here. This dude is super tall. But not going to get to him with Humphreys potentially back. I think he's back. But no, Khalif Raymond is he's a talented individual, and for that cheap price tag, I could see him popping off. So don't mind that. Jonnu Smith getting high ownership. I'm gonna fade him mostly in tournaments, but he's still going in the player pool. And then defense wise, Titans will go in there. So let's look at what we have in total over here with this game. Derrick Henry, Will Fuller. Oh, did we do the Houston side? We did do the Houston side. Derrick Henry, Will Fuller, A.J. Brown. Why do I keep forgetting that? Where have I been the last 4 minutes? A.J. Brown, David Johnson, Jonnu, Cooks, Cobb, Fells, Khalif Raymond. This is a game environment that I like. You could stack it on both sides. I would probably avoid playing Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown together. You're definitely going to want to split some of these guys up on the passing game over on the Houston side. You want to split up Will Fuller and, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. Never mind. Forget that. If you think this game goes off in the passing game, I think it's really just deciding whether, Henry is the guy that you have to really watch if it's going to be, kind of a back and forth slugfest. So that's where we're at. Let's move on. Cleveland, Pittsburgh. On the Cleveland side, they have an implied team total of 23.75. Pittsburgh, 27.25. And let's start with the Cleveland side at quarterback. I don't want any part of Baker Mayfield. He's played well as of late, but here against Pittsburgh, no thank you. Kareem Hunt, I'm going to want some in tournaments. I think he's going to be under-owned. People are going to look at this matchup and be afraid to get there, but his opportunity is what makes him so great. Odell Beckham, he's going in. I'm leery a little bit. He's had a little bit of an illness this week, so I don't know. I just not sure how I'm feeling about this. My audio on the podcast feed went down. So podcast people, you are hearing this. If you just heard a blip in the audio, sorry to the video people over there. Talking about Odell and how he's been a little bit ill. So I don't like a lot of pieces on Cleveland, but there are some pieces that I do like Kareem Hunt because of his opportunity and his potential low ownership. Austin Hooper is popping for some reason too, and I'm having a good feeling about Austin Hooper, even though he's a guy I typically don't get around to playing. I don't want any part of the Browns' defense. They did me well last week, but I think the Steelers play good football. They're going to put up points, so not really interested there. Over on the Pittsburgh side, start with quarterback. Big Ben going in. Don't know if I'm going to get a lot. I'm not trying to stack this game massively, but I will get some Big Ben. James Conner can be in the mix here. Receivers, man. Chase Claypool, what are you doing, man? This is a lot of people are excited about him. I'm kind of pissed. I've spent a lot of draft capital on Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson, both in season long and in best ball, and Chase Claypool comes up and he just screws it up for everybody. And I'm bitter about it. He's gonna have a decent matchup this week. We talked about, I don't know where they're gonna line him up, but I don't know if Denzel Ward does not go. He only plays on one side of the field, so. And literally, sticks there or goes to the slot. So if they want to avoid Denzel Ward, then I think, they could stick Claypool on the other side and really just stick James Washington with Denzel Ward. I don't know what they'll do here, but really, no matter what they do, I like all three of these guys. And you gotta mix them up a little bit. I'm not going to fully go ham on this game, but and when I say mix them up, well, let's talk about strategy at the end. I do like Eric Ebron. Let's stick him in there. And, of course, the Steelers' defense. So let's look at both of these teams as far as what we have here. Connor Hunt, Juju, Odell, Chase Claypool, James Washington, Eric Ebron, and Austin Hooper. What I mean is Chase Claypool is looking at above 20% ownership. He's the highest owned player I have in this game. And he's very talented, and he's got the Browns secondary aren't great. So he's in a really good position, but he's in a position where he could fail and at high ownership. So just be careful there. And what you doing, buddy? I'm recording. What are you doing? The son just dropped by to see what Dad was doing, and it's all live right now. I'm no editing. This is just straight to tape. What you see is what you get. All right, so we're talking about Chase Claypool. I think Smith-Schuster and even James Washington are both phenomenal tournament plays. If they are really focusing on, not letting Claypool beat them, then and they want to, even do what they do to shut down Smith-Schuster. I don't know how they shut down all these guys and James Conner, but I can see Washington getting loose here. Everyone focused on Claypool as far as the cheap guy, and then if they want to pivot, I'm going to go to Juju. So that's why I think Washington could be interesting. But I like all these receivers. Just be careful with that Chase Claypool ownership. I like Ebron. He's a touchdown monster at times. And then I like Kareem Hunt and Austin Hooper. You could definitely correlate here, even if you don't really do the full-on game stack. Big Ben's not a guy I want to get a lot at quarterback, so I'm going to do a lot of, side piece work with these games. Let's move on. Denver at New England. Denver with an 18.25 implied team total. New England 26.25. And on the Denver side, there's really not much. I'm not playing Drew Lock at running back. I guess Melvin Gordon's out, so Phillip Lindsay drops in there at 4.3K. He is going to get an abundance of the work. The coaching staff apparently really likes him. Really liked what he was doing early on in camp. And I think he's going to be a really good play tomorrow. I'll have to see what happens there. And really, I want nothing else from that side. I hate Denver. Let's just move on. We got to, like I said, keep this package tight. Don't need to talk about these Denver players that I don't want any of. On the New England side, I like Cam Newton. I think he could see a decent amount of rushing. I think he gets a rushing touchdown, throws for a touchdown or two. It's a nice game for him. Damian Harris can enter the fray for sure. If they get up in this game, there's a good chance they, smash. They just smash him in. And James White, not really somebody I'm trying to get to. There's just no need. He could have a decent game, but I don't love it. Julian Edelman, of course, N'Keal Harry, and Damiere Byrd is a guy who not a lot of people are talking about, hence his ownership. He's a great tournament play here, 3.5 salary. And let's check out in this last game, 10 targets in this last game, and he was at 3K. And I think the Patriots have just been out of sight, out of mind. They haven't priced him up. He got 5 receptions for 80 yards, 13 fantasy points. And he's had 13 fantasy points, 2 games ago. He had 9 targets as well. Another 13 fantasy point game. So Damiere Byrd is a solid play tomorrow. I don't know if I'd play him in cash, but tournaments, he's almost cheap enough to consider in cash. The value is definitely there. But in tournaments, yeah, for sure, nobody wants, play a tight end from New England since, Rob Gronkowski circa 2013. I guess that's the year it was. Patriots defense, I will absolutely play as well. Overall, going to be some stack situations here. When we look at who we have, we don't have a lot. So, yeah, Cam Newton stack him with Edelman. I don't mind a double stack there. The skinny stacks work with Cam. So maybe you don't want to, double stack too much, but I don't hate it with like Edelman and Byrd in the mix. I don't know if I'd go Edelman and N'Keal Harry. Maybe you go Harry and Byrd. Harris is just, I don't know how much of that I'm going to get. And then Phillip Lindsay is just the only decent play on the Denver side. 2 games to go. Making pretty good time. We're staring at 49 minutes. So let's move over. This game shouldn't take too long. New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. New York Jets, 18.75 implied team total. Miami, 28.25. We look at quarterback, and we don't want to go to Joe Flacco. We say no to Joe. And then at running back, this is where I'm kind of torn here. You got this young guy in LaMichael Pirine who they should be giving targets to. They should be handing the ball to. He's your young guy. You want to see what you have in him. You're already not competing for anything. I'm going to have some. And then Frank Gore, who Gase is in love with, who's going to get probably the first team work, or is going to get work regardless. And let's not forget, this is a revenge game for Frank Gore. And I don't normally do the revenge stuff. I just said this the other day. I think I might have been talking about Frank Gore. I can't remember. But yeah, revenge game for Frank Gore. No, I think I said that about Mike Davis, but it's not only a revenge game for Frank Gore, but also for Adam Gase. I could totally see if New York gets close enough to sniff the end zone. I mean, they are going to want to get, Gase is going to want to get a touchdown with his boy Frank Gore in Miami. Like, that is just a setup that I absolutely believe in when it comes to narratives in football. I go with that in basketball a little bit more, but football is just so many more. It's so much harder to predict and control and so many components. But when you have Adam Gase and Frank Gore on the same team back in Miami, I'm putting them in there. How can I not? Wide receiver, Jamison Crowder, he's been smashing. Look at this game log. He's missed a couple weeks, but the weeks he has played, 24, 17, 25 fantasy points. This 17, I think I've seen, it depends on scoring, but I've seen that in the 20s as well, so I don't know what that's taking into account here. Anything else on the Jets? Yeah, right. Like I want Herndon, like I want their defense. No, let's move over to Miami on the quarterback side. Fitzpatrick is an amazing play here against the Jets. He's got, 4 or 5 touchdown upside in a game that just goes sideways. Yeah. Myles Gaskin, he's the guy in Miami. Going up against the Jets, I really like that. Wide receiver, Fitz loves Parker. Preston Williams had a good game. Let's throw him in there. Isaiah Ford has not been bad this year for 3.5K. I mean, he started out the year, he had 9 targets in his second game. He had 10 targets in the week before last. I don't know. It's a low-owned kind of dart throw. I'll throw him in there. Not sure how many lineups he's going to get in. But if I do any sort of stack situation here, Ford could get him 1 or 2 lineups. Tight end wise, Gesicki, yeah, he's a little overpriced, man. And he's boom bust, so I'm gonna put him in there because he's got opportunity. But man, the price is a little much. Why do I keep trying? I'm just trying to go to this next game without finishing off. I am gonna put the Dolphins defense in there. They will be in consideration. I keep clicking on the Packers like I want to go to this game. Just want to get off this Miami Jets game. Really, I have a couple Jets here. I have a couple Dolphins here. I don't know how I'm going to structure this. Like, I mean, I could definitely see them both getting in the mix for stacks. I guess, I guess I'm going to play Michael P. Ryan or Frank Gore. It's got to be in a stack, right? I mean, I guess it could be one-offs also. Just kind of depends on how everything lines up. But this is a game I'll have some stack exposure to. Ownership-wise, let's look at quarterback because I know Fitz is projecting for a decent amount. Yeah, 14%. Gaskin was looking at some ownership, 16% there. Devontae Parker, 12%. But this is a game that you can definitely play without feeling guilty of the ownership situation. I mean, you can absolutely go there. My dogs are going nuts now. Kids are coming in the room, dogs going crazy. It's an interesting day around here. Hence why I did not get to record an episode this morning. All right, last game. One of the most undervalued, overlooked games of the slate, I think, when it comes to ownership. This is a phenomenal spot, and I'm going to have a lot of this game. Let me just say that. Let's start with the Packers side. 28 implied team total. Tampa Bay, 27 implied team total. Huge game total overall. Aaron Rodgers is projected at 4.5 ownership. Yes and yes. Give me one more yes just in case. Aaron Jones, he's somebody who I was sour on early on because of the Bucs defense, especially their run defense, but I think I just like the game environment so much. He is involved in the passing game, so I'm going to give me some. We saw Jamal Williams really involved his last game out against Atlanta. He had 8 rushing attempts for 10 yards, but it was the passing game. Like, out of nowhere, got 8 targets, 8 receptions, and 95 yards. 18 fantasy points. So if they're getting him involved in the rushing game, make sure, you obviously don't play Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams together, but I don't hate it for tournaments. Devontae Adams, yes. MVS, yes. That's all I want to go there. We're going to Robert Tonyan at tight end. That is a yes. And Packers defense, yeah, why not? Why not? Okay, let's go over to the Tampa Bay side. Quarterback Tom Brady. I want some just because of this game environment. I think it's going to be a shootout type situation. Ronald Jones playing well. Packers don't have a good run defense. I think Ronald Jones could be in a really good spot here, so he makes the cut. Going to receiver, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller. Love any and all of them. At tight end, O.J. Howard is he's out. He's done. We saw Gronk get some work last game out against Chicago, a little bit more than we've seen. 6 targets. I mean, that's second highest on the year, but I still don't think I want any Gronk. Cameron Brate, is he, especially at that price, is Cameron Brate cheap enough? Did he catch a touchdown? Nobody did get 6 targets. Cameron Brate's going in the mix here. I like a Cameron Brate play. Man, do I want to play Gronk? I mean, like, the potential upside could be there. What are the game environments that Tampa has been in? Let's check this out. So, all right, against the Saints, they played Carolina, they played Denver, the Chargers, Chicago. So I'm going to put Gronk in because the first couple of weeks they did use him more as a blocker. And those are probably the matchups that I would want him in the most if he was involved as a pass catcher. But he only got 3 and 1 targets, a total of 4 targets combined in the first 2 games. And in the last 3, it's been 7, 3, and 6. O.J. Howard is now injured. And those Denver, Chargers, and Chicago, these are teams that are going to kind of clog up the system. The Packers in more of an upbeat. You know what? Gronk could be a really interesting tournament play this week. It is just now kind of clicking with me. I hate it, but you just never know for tournaments. Obviously, when you see Fulgham and Claypool go nuts. Buccaneers D, I will put them in. Probably won't get a lot, but let's look at what we have in total for both of these teams. Look at this. We just have a ton of guys here. I want different combinations of this all over the board. Yeah, I mean, you know what the stacks are. We talked about them earlier in the week. They're obvious. I'm going to want a lot of Rodgers to Devontae Adams. I'm going to want to mix that in with some Aaron Jones, with some Robert Tonyan, with some MVS. Bring it back with Scotty Miller at this really good price. After a donut last week. Chris Godwin I feel good about. Evans, Gronk maybe. So yeah, and as a whole, like backing up, just looking at this entire slate right now, how I kind of want to approach this. Let's go ahead. Let's move to, I have 110 guys overall in my player pool. Want to add all these teams back in the mix here. Let's see who projects when I sort by points per dollar. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Freeman, David Montgomery, Philip Lindsay popping up top. We have, as far as the ownership goes, looks like Madison, Davis, A.J. Brown, David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, Chase Claypool. Some of the top owned guys along with Thielen, Galladay. So Madison, I think, is good chalk. Mike Davis, I don't know. In tournaments, no. In cash games, I'm fine with it. A.J. Brown in cash games, I'm fine with it. He still has good tournament upside. I'm there, but you just know he's got the potential to maybe underwhelm. David Montgomery, decent play. I think I'm going to try to go under the field, 27.6%. I know, running backs against Carolina, but, it's David Montgomery. When have we ever seen him really, really pop off and impress us. Not very often, and at 27% owned, I'm going to want to get under that. Derrick Henry, love the spot, but still in tournaments, going to try to get under that. Chase Claypool, love the spot, going to still try to get under in tournaments. There's really great pivots here to some of these guys, when it comes to just getting to either other pivots at running back or other pivots, in this game situation, specifically like a Chase Claypool with, pivoting to Juju. Thielen and Galladay, I think, are both pretty good chalk, better than the A.J. Brown chalk, who is going to be more owned. So that's why I'm a little bit off this stuff up here and a little bit more okay with this stuff down here when it comes to Galladay, Thielen, and whatnot. So I'm going to want, I think, a little bit of the three games that I'm most interested in are Detroit, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Packers, Tampa Bay. I'm going to want at least one of every piece of those games, if not pieces of two out of these three games. So I might set up groups if I'm going to, if we're going to use lineup HQ and build lineups on an optimizer, just put all the guys from all these games into a big group up here in player groups, which you can't see because I have it, kind of mixed up here. But up here in player groups, you can put all these guys in a group. And whether you're hand building or whatever, just keep this in mind that, you're going to want, maybe the full stack with the quarterback from one of these three games. And then maybe even the kind of a correlative piece, one on one side of the ball, one on the other side of the ball, going back and forth from another game. If you can cram all three games in, that's fine. It's probably going to be fairly chalky, but I'm going to want pieces there. Things I like between the big kind of chalk games, and Tampa Bay, Green Bay, it's not as chalky as you would think. Other spots that I'm going to want, definitely some Fitz Magic love in there. Definitely some Cam stuff. Definitely want to build around that. Want some Houston, Tennessee. I think Will Fuller is in a tremendous spot. I think you could go back to Brandon Cooks again. He went from failing us all with no touches to just blowing the slate up yesterday. He would have been the slate breaker if it wasn't for Claypool and that other random guy in Philly. Chicago, Carolina, I'm going to back off of it in tournaments. I think people are going to be on it, so I'm going to back off. You know what I like in Washington, New York. It could be just ugly there defensively. Could be more offense than we suspect. And even if not, those four guys who I mentioned, Freeman, Gibson, the running backs on each side, Slayton, McLaurin, Atlanta, Minnesota, I like it. I love the Minnesota side of the ball more. Thielen, Jefferson, Madison, I think are all pretty great plays. Jefferson for tournaments is great. Thielen and Madison for cash are phenomenal. I think playing Julio, man, is going to be, it's definitely going to be contrarian, and we've seen Julio come back when no one's playing him and just light up the stage. So I'm definitely going to have some Julio exposure in tournaments. Love this game. Detroit, Jacksonville. Like T. Higgins in this on the Cincinnati side. Like Taylor. And that one random tight end. Now his name's Burton. I know I'm just kind of playing up the joke from earlier. And I want to get me some Lamar. That's kind of where I'm sitting. I'm actually feeling pretty good about tournaments this week and the strategy that I want to employ. There's a lot of guys like down here. You know what? Did I miss something from? I think I might have missed something because I'm just thinking about like some of these underpriced guys who I think are going to get overlooked. And this slate is so wide open. It's not like last week's slate where there's only four really true running back, go-to plays to choose from, and you got to pick three out of the four. It's so wide open this week. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, in Chicago, I did not get Mooney in the mix. Darnell Mooney is one of these cheap guys that I like, so let's put him back in there. Let's go back to my player pool. So 111 guys. I got to correct that, not 110. So what I want to do is, especially a wide receiver, because that's where I want to get, that's kind of where I want to get different. Like at quarterback, let's just go through each position. This Tannehill, Fitzpatrick, Stafford, this is going to be like a lot of like where people are landing on in cash. Maybe some Deshaun and Kirk Cousins as well. So I'm going to want to get a little bit of this in my stacks, but when I'm not stacking with these chalk guys, definitely want to get some Lamar, Cam, Aaron Rodgers, and then mix in a couple of these guys down here, your Minshews, your Bradys, your Roethlisbergers, your Ryans. Just a little exposure to them. But I think my heaviest exposure is going to be kind of in this Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, even Kirk Cousins. You'd think he'd be chalkier than he is, but he's only coming in at like 6% right now. Stafford, Fitzpatrick, and Tannehill are the most owned guys, so I'm going to come underweight in tournaments on these guys. Probably going to be there. I'm probably going to match the field or be over on Stafford because I like him a little better than Tannehill or Fitzpatrick, I think. So yeah, that's where I'm going. These mid-range ownership guys. I've already said it. Why am I recapping? Let's go to running back. So in tournaments, I'm going to want Madison. It's good chalk. I think I'm kind of fading Davis and Montgomery a little bit, maybe even Henry. Might match the field on Henry, but I love guys in tournaments like Gaskin, Taylor. Lindsey's going to be chalky, but I like that. I love James Robinson, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, Ronald Jones, Devontae Freeman. Like, these are the guys that I want in tournaments. Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson. These are my tournament guys for the week there. That's kind of where I'm going to go, sticking with all those running backs. Wide receiver, it's really chalky up top, and a lot of this could fail. Wide receiver is definitely a volatile position. It's not, you just put the ball in their hands like a running back, and then they do what they do. They at least get the touch. Not all the wide receivers get the actual touches, even if they're targeted. So things can go a little sideways for receivers. So I want a little A.J. Brown. I want some Claypool. I want some Thielen, Galladay, McLaurin, Adams. These are some of your highest owned receivers this week. I'm going to want some of them, absolutely. But you're going to have to come under you're going to have to figure out which ones you believe in the most and which ones you're going to want to fade, because you're going to want to fade some of them. And you're going to want to look in this range of, Will Fuller, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Cooks, Ridley. Like, Ridley only 9%. That's great. I don't really like Robbie Anderson, but he's going to be lower owned than normal. But I think that number is going to be a little higher than we're seeing right there. Marquise Brown, Julio, Marvin, Allen Robinson. These are guys who I want to get a little heavy on. And then I want to come all the way down here, and I might make a massive group of guys like James Washington, Scotty Miller. Wait, hold on. Let's think about this. I don't know that James Washington makes the cut. But Scotty Miller, depending on Chark's health, Keelan Cole possibly, N'Keal Harry, Russell Gage, MVS, LaVisca, Damiere Byrd, Mooney, T. Higgins. Kind of these guys that no one are going to be on them and that are pretty cheap, and maybe just say, like, I want one of these guys in every lineup, because these are the guys who can set themselves apart. They're low owned, they're cheap, and you pick the ones who are in good positions, and you kind of hit them hard, and that's going to set you apart for tournaments. At tight end, you want to be different from the field. You do not want to eat the chalk at tight end in tournaments. Eat the chalk all day in cash, but try to stay away from that in tournaments. Jonnu Smith, he's got great opportunity, but he's got opportunity to let you down. Irv Smith, in a good game environment, very, very cheap, but he's the second highest, owned tight end at this point. You don't want to be there when everybody else is there and he lets you down. You want to be on someone else. Mark Andrews, he's the third highest owned guy. That's totally fine with me because he brings the most upside. Trey Burton, in cash, again, I think he's a good play. In tournaments, out of any of these guys, he's the guy I could see landing on the most. The guy with the decent floor, decent ceiling, decent price, as opposed to the price of Irv Smith, who's $2,500. And but I think Burton's floor is much better. I like Ebron getting on Tanyan. You're starting to get down to some of these lower owned guys. Austin Hooper, Hawkinson. Hayden Hurst, who let me down last week, but getting some of these guys, and even some of these guys like a Jimmy Graham, a Gronk, Cameron Brate. You get on these guys, and you're going to make yourself different. If they pop and nobody else is on them, it's going to be good for you. Defense, I got something went wrong here on Lineup HQ. Defense, you just play who you play. There's no rhyme or reason for defense. Match them up with the running backs, but just kind of go random on there. The variance is very high. All right, we're pushing 1 hour and 10 minutes. I told you, a lot of information. We went top to bottom, position by position, game by game, ownership, stacking. I think we covered it all. Those are my final thoughts and strategies for construction, correlation for week 6. So, as we wrap it up, as always, good luck in all your GPPs. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and may all those GPP dreams come true.